Hey guys, Emily Muchanti here, and today I have a video that is a little bit like looking in the rearview mirror, and I am redoing one of my most popular videos from about 5 years ago about what the five most important instructional focuses are for reading intervention. But I'm going to revise that just a little bit. I started this YouTube channel I think we're coming up on 6 or 7 years ago. And it's interesting now to go back and see what is most popular. And by far, one of the most popular videos I did was for brand new reading intervention teachers looking to see what they should focus their teaching on. And let me start by saying there's a couple of important things. It's important what we teach, it's important how we teach it, and it's also important the resources that we use to teach those things. Today, we're simply going to look at what is it that we should be focusing our instructional time on as far as skills go. So I will link the original video down below. You'll see me looking a little bit younger, having a lot more pauses or where I'm looking for my thoughts and ideas. It's kind of funny and a slightly uncomfortable to go back and watch yourself. I like to think I've gotten a little bit better with YouTube. But remember, please like, subscribe, and share this video. If you are enjoying this channel and this content, don't forget to leave me a comment. The YouTube analytics and the gremlins out there need to see that you are engaging with the content in order to keep pushing it out. So that is one super huge way that you can help support me, what I do, and this channel. Okay, so let's get started. Now, there are a number of things that we could be focusing our instruction on, but we have to remember our clientele. We are starting with working with kids that are struggling, and the older they get, the longer they have been struggling. So we have to understand a couple of important aspects about how reading develops. And I always like to go back to the simple view of reading and Scarborough's reading rope. The simple view of reading says that we have to have the ability to decode words, read the words in print. We have to be able to understand the language concepts and vocabulary of those words in print in order to obtain and produce reading comprehension. So the first thing we need to remember is that reading comprehension is a product. It is a product of a number of skills working together, hopefully seamlessly, so that the student can then extract meaning from what they are reading. That's first and foremost. So what are the important skills that we have to teach? And I am going to start by adding number one that was not in my original video, and this is oral language. We have got to start by developing the oral language in our students. And we like to think, I believe, that this is something that is happening with our young children, and it is. But we can't drop off how important this is as our students are getting older. And I will say, now, 5 years after the original video that I did, I think we have more and more evidence of how valuable and important oral language is. And our schools, and in some cases our families, are not as verbal as they used to be. We've got our kids in front of devices all the time, and that is really affecting their oral language development. So we have to embed and infuse opportunities to have our students respond in complete sentences. We have to help them with the syntax of the language, the grammatical structures of the language, and I'm talking just orally at this stage. Now, when we do this, we are giving them some of that foundational road mapping, if you will, for when they connect print to this language. So we have to be sure that if we are talking, our students are having opportunities to respond, that we are giving them opportunities that are going to structure the language in such a way that they can strengthen their oral language. This is going to also help with vocabulary. We need to infuse all of that vocabulary, which we'll get to a little bit. But we have to remember how valuable and important oral language is. Our students need opportunities to articulate language. They need to work on saying the words correctly, and we need to draw attention to that in order to have our students really map those words, that language, in that language side of the brain. So oral language is our first and most important foundational literacy skill that we need to make sure that we are working on and enriching in reading intervention. Now, the second instructional focus that should be is your phonological and phonemic awareness. Phonological and phonemic awareness are something that develop very early in our students, actually probably more in that toddler years when they're starting to babble and listen to sound. We need to be able to understand that language is made up of individual speech sounds called phonemes. And the reason this is so important is twofold. Number one, we are going to have students hear these sounds, manipulate these sounds with the absence of letters and words first, so that when we do introduce letters and then blending and decoding of actual words, they are taking that side of what they've already learned with those speech sounds and just connecting them to the actual letters and then those phonics patterns in order to read words. So the beginning of phonemic awareness does begin as instructionally with the absence of letters. But something that I did not know in my original video was, and there's been a lot of evidence that's come out since, as soon as our students know their letter sounds, know their letter names, we want to start connecting those speech sounds with the actual letters. And this is going to accelerate that alphabetic principle. It is the bridge. Remember, the alphabetic principle is a bridge from phonemic awareness to phonics. And I didn't realize how important this was a number of years ago, thanks to evidence and continuing to learn. This will help to accelerate our students' growth as soon as they have it, as soon as they have those letter names and letter sounds, we start connecting that with the phonemic awareness work that they are doing. This will hopefully make sure that we're getting into those phonics stages much more quickly. And it should also reduce the amount of time that we are spending just on phonemic awareness outside of letters and phonics. Okay, so we want to bridge those two things as quickly as possible. Another reason that we want to really support the phonemic awareness growth of our students is because phonemic awareness is a predictive indicator of later reading achievement. So even before our students have those letter sounds, letter knowledge, we have a risk factor that we can identify in our TK pre-K kids and kindergarten students. If they are struggling with this concept, we know we have to come in and hit this instructional focus of phonemic awareness very quickly and very explicitly, because it is going to affect their reading development as we go. And we know that when we intervene early and we intervene, I think, in a more focused way in this area, we can actually prevent a number of reading difficulties, including dyslexia, that will come down the road. So phonemic awareness is an absolute important area that we need to focus our instructional time in intervention. Now, our third instructional focus has to be on phonics. Phonics and decoding, giving our students the underlying skills so that they can decode words, that they can break down that code, and then start to read. Now, this seems to be more of a focus in our K second, K third, but I want to remind you, especially those of you who are working with older struggling readers, if your students are not comprehending, we have to keep going backward to figure out where the problem is. And if that problem is in phonics, we have got to support them with those skills. We have to teach the sounds that the letters make. We have to teach the sounds of those common phonics patterns. We need to teach our students how to blend those sounds together to read actual words. So this phonics focus, even though it might be heavier in the K2, especially whole group, when we work with older struggling readers, we have got to remember that we have to go back here, assess where those students are with those phonics skills so that we can then bridge those gaps. One thing to consider in your assessment battery, if you do not have it, is a phonics diagnostic. Sometimes they're called phonics screeners. 95% group has a great phonics screener that you can use. There's the QPS. There are a number of them. When looking for a phonics assessment, ensure that you have one that is also utilizing nonsense words. This will really help to separate whether that student has mastered those phonics patterns or if they have in fact just memorized a number of words, and we have to be careful with that. So phonics is the third instructional focus at all levels of intervention. The fourth instructional focus really has to be on fluency. We are looking at making sure that our students are reading effortlessly at an appropriate pace and with expression, but a caution on the expression piece. Remember that before expression can develop, our students have to start by being accurate. They can't be accurate unless they have the phonics components and knowledge there. So we start with that accuracy and we build that automaticity with our phonics, or with our fluency practice. Repeated reading is still a great way to support our students' fluency development, whether it is reading the same passage over several days, whether you're charting fluency or not. I do have a video on the 6-minute solution that goes in pretty in-depth that I will link down below for you to check out how to actually incorporate repeated reading into your intervention structure. Now, fluency, though, we want to be sure that we are giving our students those underlying skills that really are going to build out into that fluency. But we have to build the automaticity. Kids have to be able to read effortlessly, and they need practice. So when we're practicing our decoding with our phonics instruction, we want to make sure that we're also adding in opportunities for repeated practice, whether it's starting with word lists of similar patterns, whether we're working with decodable passages, giving opportunities for that repeated reading practice to develop fluency. All right, the next focus of our instruction, this would be number 5. And see, I'm already going over. So number 5 now is going to be vocabulary. Our students have to have opportunities to learn new words, apply new words, and if we know that comprehension is the goal and is the product of all of our skills working together, a great variable in a student's comprehension is the meanings of the words. Do they know the meanings of the words that they are reading? And so we have to support this instruction. And we know that we don't have enough time to teach every single word in the English language. So what are some tips or strategies that we can use in order to expedite our vocabulary knowledge? And number 1 is going to be morphology. Teaching morphology so that our students are understanding the chunks of the words, so that they are understanding what those morphemes mean. And as they put those different morphemes together, they are coming up with reasonable definitions of the words that they are reading in real time. When we teach morphology, we are going to get a greater return on our investment rather than just teaching individual definitions. Now, sometimes individual definitions are absolutely very important. I'm not saying they are not, but morphology instruction in order to support vocabulary is a really important tool. There is Morpheme Magic, which is now under the 95% group. You can check that out. That is coming in with a lot of recommendations. Check it out. They actually have morphemes for littles as well. You can start your morpheme instruction, morphology instruction early. That would be great as well. But we know that when we develop that skill and we teach that content, we are going to equip our students with the opportunities to actually build and learn and know more words as they are reading more independently. Now, the fifth instructional focus, nope, I already knew I miscounted because I wrote it down wrong. The sixth instructional focus that we want to really give time to is comprehension. Absolutely. We started by saying that comprehension is a product. It is the result of all of these earlier skills working together. Now, there are some students, what we call hyperlexics, that might be really incredible word callers. They might say all the words beautifully. They might have beautiful fluency rates, so they're reading accurately at an appropriate rate, and they still may not comprehend. Those students, then, we have to go back and look at some language processing issues, perhaps. We need to look at background knowledge, could be a big reason that those students are not comprehending. We also may need to teach some of those individual comprehension strategies so that they are interacting more directly with the text. All of those things are true, but most often, those comprehension issues that we see in the majority of our kids in intervention can actually be linked back to some of those earlier skills that we mentioned. And this is why the assessment of all of these individual skills is really important so that you know where your instruction needs to focus so that we can get our students to where they actually need to be, which is comprehending the text. Now, I do want to give a shout out. This would be number 7. This is my bonus one, and it's the same one that I had in my original video, and that is writing. We need to connect writing when we are instructing our students with phonics, with comprehension, with vocabulary. We want to include writing. Now, when I'm talking about writing, that's a really big, broad topic. It may be the mechanics of letter formation for our little students, our young students. It might be more the structure of the sentence to develop some syntax for some of our older students. It might be opportunities to write summaries as a way to develop and strengthen comprehension in all of our students. But when we are connecting writing, and I mean manual, physical, paper to pencil writing, I don't mean typing. I want these kids off of devices, quite honestly. I want the mechanics of the physical action of writing the words. This also includes then spelling when we're teaching our students phonics. We want to connect that writing of the word to enhance spelling. So all of these things have to work together. There is a bit of a staircase hierarchy in how these all develop, understanding that oral language is foundational. Phonemic awareness is another foundational skill. And then we start to build. And when students come to us, especially older students that are presenting with comprehension difficulties or deficits, we have to go backward to figure out where that gap is. But remember that intervention, reading intervention, is really about going back to provide the skills that these students need to be able to read It's not going back and reteaching the standards that the classroom teacher maybe had some difficulty with. That's their job. We want to focus in on making sure that our students are proficient readers so that when they are reading for any content area at any grade, they've got the skills necessary in order to access that information. And that's not much, right? It's kind of all of it, I know, but we want to make sure that we are focusing our time. Dr. Roland Good, the words always stick with me. He said once that if you don't know what's important, you'll try to teach everything. If you try to teach everything, you'll be asked to teach more. And if you are asked to teach more, you're never going to have time to figure out what is important. So these are those skills that are important for reading intervention. Don't forget it. Let them be your guiding light so that you know exactly what your instruction should focus on. And if you are interested in how all of this works together into a seamless intervention program, I would love for you to check out my link for my course, the Tier 2 and Tier 3 strategic plan for reading intervention. This is an asynchronous course that is going to help give you the tools, the resources, and the guidance to actually putting it all together. All right, remember, if you are enjoying this channel, if this content is helpful to you, please give it a like, subscribe, click the little bell notification. We got to let everybody know in YouTube that it's valuable. And don't forget, join my newsletter list, my email list, so that you are invited to different Q&As we have and you get some additional weekly tips from me. And until next time, thank you for what you do. Bye for now.